Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into the sources you sent over, and we're really focusing on a huge question, the actual logic behind religious worship.
That's right. We're not looking at the history necessarily or the cultural aspects today.
No, strictly the arguments presented in the material for why someone would, logically speaking, choose to acknowledge, a higher power and how they should respond.
Mm.
Our goal here is to find those sort of surprising aha moments, the practical reasons given in these texts that might make worship feel like the most rational thing to do.
And we really start from a place that's quite grounded, I think. It begins with acknowledging our own human limitations.
How so?
Well, just looking honestly at ourselves, we're not really self-sufficient, are we? We feel small compared to the universe, maybe worried about getting sick, or even just stressed about an exam or a meeting.
Right, that feeling of vulnerability.
Exactly. That initial premise is realizing we are fundamentally dependent. We can't do it all ourselves.
It's interesting that the argument kicks off there with our own internal feeling rather than, say, looking at the stars first.
I think it makes it very personal. It grounds it. We have needs, we have worries, and crucially, we know we're not permanent.
Okay.
And then immediately that feeling of frailty is put side by side with the external world.
The world outside us.
Yes, which the sources describe as, amazing, super organized. Think about gravity, it always works the same. Or how complex even a tiny insect is. Or the planets in their orbits. It's this vast, intricate working system.
Okay, so let's trace that logic. I see a complex system, maybe I admire it. But how do these sources argue that this observation logically pushes us towards acknowledging a supreme being? Why not just admire nature itself?
Well, the key argument here seems to be about dependence versus non-dependence. The sources sort of perform a philosophical check.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like if you're going to place your ultimate trust or gratitude or direct your efforts towards something, well, that something needs to be permanent, right? It can't be temporary.
And everything we normally see or interact with is temporary.
Exactly. The sun, your health, money, even the earth itself. Everything changes or breaks down or relies on something else to exist. Nothing just is on its own.
So relying completely on anything that is itself dependent, anything that can fail or change, that's like building on sand. It's logically flawed if you're looking for something ultimate.
Precisely. That's the core idea. It's seen as self-defeating, leading to disappointment. If everything depends on something else, you logically have to follow that chain back.
Back to a starting point.
To a foundational reality, something that doesn't depend on anything else. And the texts conclude, quite forcefully, that it only makes logical sense to direct that ultimate acknowledgement, that worship, towards a supreme being.
The master design.
It's a master designer, yes. The one who is independent, absolute, and actually sustains all these orderly systems we see. That's the only James, being truly worthy of that ultimate reliance.
Okay, that leads very naturally into the next section then. Finding our purpose and acknowledging the giver. If we accept this idea of a non-dependent designer creating order,
then that order must logically include us too. We're part of it.
we're not separate from the system.
Right. Look at the big picture they paint. Everything has rules, a kind of uniformity, a specific role to play. A bee does its job, a river flows, a planet spins. That's its function, its purpose within the grand design.
And since we're in that design, our existence can't just be a random fluke, according to this view.
That's the implication. If there's a designer, there's likely a purpose behind each part, including us. So this implies we each have a specific role, a duty, something we're meant to do.
We go from realizing we're dependent to realizing we're perhaps intended.
Intended, yes.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
And I found the most, evocative part here is how the sources frame this through beauty and provision. It's not just about cold rules, it's about abundance.
Oh, absolutely. The descriptions of nature's colors, the scale of the cosmos, things we can appreciate but never truly replicate ourselves.
Yes, and that analogy they use, I thought this was quite striking, comparing the world to a fully set table of awesome food and decorations.
Laid out perfectly.
Laid out perfectly for us. And the idea is, when you reach for anything on that table, the food, the beauty, you can't help but sense the one who provided it, the giver.
That analogy is powerful because it shifts the reasoning. It goes beyond just logic to maybe an emotional necessity, the feeling of gratitude.
An obligation almost.
An obligation born from receiving so much. Every balanced ecosystem, every beautiful sunset, every bit of good we experience. It all points back, in this view, to the giver who sustains it all.
So worship becomes less of a chore and more of a natural thank you.
Exactly. The sources frame it as the fitting, logical, and grateful response. It's acknowledging the creator who is revealing himself in a way through the sheer generosity and perfection of what he's made.
Okay, but this raises a really interesting question, which the sources actually tackle head-on. This brings us to Section 3, innate insight.
Ah, yes.
If the world is this obvious, fully set table, if the evidence is all around us, could someone just figure out the giver on their own? Do we even need prophets or specific revelations?
That's a really key point of discussion within these texts. It touches on the views of some early rationalist thinkers. They're sometimes called the Mutazilis.
And what was their take?
Well, they champion the idea that pure human reason, just by carefully observing the universe, should be enough. Enough to recognize God and to understand our basic duty towards him, even without a prophet or a holy book.
Wow, okay. That the proof is basically self-evident.
That's the argument, that the signs are clear enough for an honest observer.
Do the sources offer any sort of proof or examples for this idea of innate knowing?
They do. There are a couple of really compelling examples mentioned. The first one is quite famous, the story of the Bedouin's insight.
Tell us about that.
Well, it's about a simple desert nomad, right? Not a scholar, just someone living close to nature. And he makes this incredible logical deduction based purely on what he sees every day.
What does he say?
The quote is something like, "Camel droppings point to a camel, footprints point to a traveler." Simple observation. Then he extends it. So heaven with its stars, the earth with its mountains and valleys, the sea with its waves, don't all these point to the all-powerful, knowing, wise, and caring maker?
That's remarkably simple but profound. It's just basic cause and effect. A trace implies a source.
Exactly. The simplest form of deductive reasoning. If this exists, that must have caused it.
And was this just a theoretical idea, or did people actually act on this kind of insight?
The sources suggest it wasn't just theory. They mention historical figures, people like Muhammad before he became the prophet, and another figure named Zayd ibn Amr.
What did they do?
They were known, apparently, for searching for the truth. They rejected the common idol worship of their time and began to worship the one supreme designer based on their own reasoning and observation of the world. This is before the final divine message came.
So the idea is a pure heart, someone genuinely looking at the harmony of creation. They can sense their purpose and feel drawn to the Creator.
That seems to be the conclusion, yes. That knowing God naturally leads to wanting to serve him because he's the ultimate provider of everything.
Which leads us perfectly into the really practical question, the how. We've talked a lot about the why, gratitude, purpose, logic.
Right.
But Section 4 asks, why do we need specific, revealed rules for worship, for prayer?
Right.
If the Bedouin could figure out the who just by looking at tracks in the sand, why can't I just come up with my own sincere way to say thank you to the designer?
That's the critical transition. The sources explain it like this. Innate reason might get you to the door recognizing the who, but the specific instructions, the revealed way, that tells you how to actually open the door and connect effectively.
So the prescribed way is like a tool.
A powerful spiritual tool, yes. And because the goal is maximum effectiveness and, importantly, acceptance by the designer, God provides the exact instructions. It's not left to guesswork.
And the emphasis is on following the prophet's example.
Very much so, because he was the one directly taught the correct methodology by the designer himself.
The analogies used here are quite helpful, I thought.
Yeah.
They frame it less as blind obedience and more about, well, guaranteed results.
Like the entrepreneur advice one.
Right. If a super successful entrepreneur, someone you admire, gives you their exact step-by-step business plan for free, are you really going to ignore it and just wing it based on your own intuition?
It wouldn't seem very rational, would it?
No. Or the manufacturer's guide analogy that's even clearer.
When you get a complex new gadget.
You read the manual.
Yeah.
Because the people who made it know how it worked best, how to get the most out of it, how to make it last.
And the sources apply that directly. These instructions for worship are like the manufacturer's guide for our spiritual success, both here and in the hereafter. The Creator knows best what works.
So the specific words, the timings, the postures, they aren't just random rules. They're like the expert's specific settings for optimal performance.
Exactly. Settings designed to produce the best spiritual outcome.
How do the sources explain why, though? What's the mechanism that makes this prescribed method superior spiritually?
This is probably the deepest part of this section. The text suggests that when we follow these methods, say, articulating specific phrases like Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest, with deep focus while doing the set movements,
Yeah.
we're essentially tuning into a specific spiritual frequency. It's described almost like operating precise spiritual technology.
Wow.
Every prescribed word and movement, done sincerely and correctly, is said to be capable of opening hidden doors and secret locks, leading to, well, amazing spiritual realms.
Whereas our own made-up method,
Yeah.
however sincere.
Might lack that precision, that calibration. It might be heartfelt, but it doesn't have the same guaranteed connection, the same key to unlock those doors. The prescribed way is presented as the proven, accepted channel.
It really changes the perspective. It's not just expressing gratitude. It's like engaging in a specific, powerful spiritual engineering process.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
And finally, there's one last crucial point the sources make, just to round off the whole logical picture.
Which is?
Who actually benefits from all this worship? We've established the logic for why we should do it, acknowledging the Creator.
But does God need it?
No, that's emphasized very strongly. The Creator is described as free of all need, completely self-sufficient.
It's entirely for us.
It's entirely for our benefit. Our dependence is absolute. Our spiritual needs, our emotional needs, our need for guidance. These are met through that prescribed connection. The worship benefits the worshiper profoundly. It adds nothing to the greatness of the one being worshipped.
Right. Okay. So let's try and pull this all together for you, the listener. We've gone through quite a journey here today based on these texts.
We really have. We started with that core realization of human dependence, our limitations. Then we saw how the incredible order and provision in the universe points towards a giver, creating an obligation of gratitude.
We looked at the evidence, suggesting we might even have an innate ability to sense this designer, like the Bedouin's insight.
Mm-hmm. And finally, we explored the practical necessity of following the specific blueprint for Worship the Manufacturer's Guide, if you will, to ensure that connection is effective and accepted.
So this deep dive really shows that religious worship, at least as presented in these sources, isn't portrayed as just arbitrary tradition.
No, it's framed as a deeply logical, necessary, and grateful response to the reality of the universe being a design system with a designer who provides everything.
It offers a whole framework, really,
Hmm.
from feeling small to identifying the ultimate source of everything and then understanding the specific way to connect back to that source.
Exactly, a comprehensive rationale.
Okay, before we finish, here's something to think about. Building on that Bedouin's insight we discussed.
Mhm.
If something as simple as a footprint in the sand, or, camel droppings, can point so clearly to an intelligent source, what's a small, subtle detail in your own everyday surroundings? Something you probably take completely for granted.
Interesting question.
What tiny thing, maybe the way water swirls down a drain, or the pattern on a leaf, or just the way your eyes focus, what subtle detail, if you really looked at it, might be the most profound evidence of purpose right in front of you? Mull that over until our next deep dive.